For almost all of history, the sights and sounds of war has always been relegated to only the battlefield themselves, until television. Deemed the television war, the Vietnam War was the first war that took place in the age of television, and the work of war correspondents during this time would go on to forever change wartime journalism.
All of this will remain part of the long heritage of the Vietnam War. Ron Miller, ABC News, Michon.
At the start of the last major American war during the Korean War in 1950, only 9% of American households owned TVs. By the height of the Vietnam War in 1968, that number would jump to nearly 95%. Americans now relied on TV to receive their news, and media companies and wartime correspondents had to adapt.
This is a CBS News special report. The ordeal of Con Tien.
The U.S. military gave previously unforeseen access to correspondents, allowing them to freely attach themselves to whatever military units they wished and accompany them on patrols, ambushes, and large battles to capture what they saw to be sent back to viewers at home. Famous journalists such as Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather patrolled the cities and jungles of Vietnam for CBS, not just reporting on the latest stories, but actually showing the death and destruction firsthand to the American populace as it happened. While people today still argue about whether or not the media had any role in America's defeat in Vietnam, it is unarguable to state the impact the Vietnam War had on the practice of wartime correspondence and journalism in general. Unlike ever before during a time of war, journalists openly questioned and contradicted the information disseminated by the U.S. government and its military. War correspondents in Vietnam learned that they could no longer assume that U.S. foreign policy was automatically just and right. Questioning the generals and military authorities to get the truth was important work that correspondents began to take up alongside the watchdogs of political journalists back at home in America. Correspondents also learned to revise their own procedures by curtailing the practice of parachute journalism and instead focusing on context and personal stories of the people involved in the conflict, something that is still the style of war correspondence today.
Sunni city and use it as a rallying cry.
Oh, absolutely, because ISIS continues.
Wartime journalism underwent massive changes from the Vietnam War, and the experiences and lessons of impartiality, truth-seeking, and reliability are still being taught today. It will remain a landmark in the history of American journalism for eternity.